Is your small business growing? That's the question we address right here on the Grow Your Biz Show. It's where we interview strategic entrepreneurs who inform and inspire you on your solopreneur or small company journey. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Grow Your Biz Show. Hello and welcome to episode number 107 of the Grow Your Biz Show. I'm your host, Paul Madsen, and also the founder of GrowMedia.com. Hey guys, GrowMedia.com helps small businesses to build their social media engagement via videos that we create strategically together. So that's what we do.
It's also my favorite website.
Well, we're the good thing. Paul Jarrett, Lincoln, Nebraska, Bulu. Welcome.
Give me that $100 later.
Yeah, later. I'll pay you later. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Paul. I knew there's a reason he's on the show. Paul Jarrett of Bulu in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're going to hear all about it. Eric, welcome to the show. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as always.
Eric, co-founder of Crouch Recreation right here in Omaha, Nebraska. Both of these guys have been on the show before, and now we have ×2 superpower. We're going to knock it dead.
Let's go.
The reason we're going to do it this way is because we have all sorts of viewer questions, and we had one segment last week with that, and we had a lot of fun. We're going to wear the same clothes, and we're going to do another segment this week. It's funny how you guys wore the same clothes.
I just washed it and came right back.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the magic of TV, right?
That's right.
So anyway, hey, Eric, tell us, what is Crouch Recreation's customer benefit summary or statement?
Well, we're building outdoor play spaces in South Dakota, Nebraska, tying communities together. That's the best way that I can say it. We are a design, build, and produce with our products, and we work in South Dakota, Nebraska, and part of Iowa.
And typically your clients are cities?
Yeah,
and
city parks,
schools
school districts, churches, daycares. I mean,
daycare,
it's really in the commercial market, so we're not in the residential backyards,
Gotcha.
but it's more commercial equipment.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, what I really liked about your answer was you talk about tying communities together. I mean, I see 6-year-olds run around with their device.
So cool.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Well, not the device part, but
yeah, well, actually, they need to put it down to play with the equipment you provide, right?
It is true. I mean, in a day and age of technology, it's still kind of nice to just put it all down and go out and socialize on the playground, make new friends, work on some climbing and
use your body.
Yeah,
wellness,
spinning and swinging, or just go by yourself and do something and kind of just meditate and get away for a little bit. So those are the types of places that we're creating.
Sounds great, and parents go along often, and so you're building that community.
Yeah, we are, and I mean, there's a lot of things going on now where all of our, and I wouldn't say all, but a lot of our projects are including everyone. Inclusive playgrounds for kids and parents and people just that are wheelchair bound or disabled in a way.
A whole new market, I'm sure, with the disability.
It should be the standard, like I said. It's just one of those things that I think really helps an area and a community in a lot of ways.
How long have you had the business and what locations again?
Yep, so we cover South Dakota. We got an office in South Dakota, Nebraska, and Pottawatomie County in Iowa.
And how long have you been at it?
16 years.
16? Mm-hmm. Holy buckets.
Yep. Goes by quick.
Yeah, that flies. That's crazy.
So
it's crazy. Paul, how long have you had Bulu?
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
You and your co-founder.
Yep, my wife /
the
co-founder.
boss, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
And
Sounds
tell
like
us.
we got that in common.
Yeah, I'm in trouble already. Tell us what the customer benefit statement is for Bulu.
So what we say is we build private label subscription box programs for large brands like Disney and Hasbro and Clorox. Those are brands that we work with. But really kind of behind that marketing statement, what we know that we're doing is that we are removing kind of the fear and anxiety for people at large brands who are tasked with innovation. So we can come to those folks and say, we have a program, and subscription boxes are things that most companies are doing now. And once they see that recurring revenue, they're
interesting. So I'm a large company. I know I have to do something new to touch base with my customers. And there's this thing called the internet out there. Most of us heard of. And how do they get from where they are in their old practices to having that monthly touch point with customers.
Yeah, well, a lot of them, it's their responsibility to build things for the company, but a lot of folks don't come from an entrepreneurial background.
Right.
So, if they build something completely new that doesn't exist, they're usually terrified, and that's hard. That's a different breed, right? But if they do something that everybody else is doing, it isn't quite innovation. So it's kind of that sweet spot. It probably actually is very similar to like what you're doing, and also there's just like a cool. We have a couple of kids boxes like for Disney and Crayola and some, and it's really cool to see kids using your product. I didn't realize that until I saw it on social media, and you're like,
wow, nice.
oh.
Get them addicted early.
Or like my kid using something I made, I'm like, that's awesome. I never thought of that. So something cool about seeing kids use stuff.
Yeah, and just in case somebody doesn't know what a subscription box service is, why don't you run us through that?
Yeah, so they're really popular. It's about a $15 billion industry right now, but they started off, think Book of the Month or Makeup or Dollar Shave Club or Blue Apron. So all these ads that people hear about get food or clothing repeated on a monthly or quarterly basis. We started with our own doing vitamins and supplements. That went incredibly well. And as it became more difficult to scale due to marketing costs, we thought, well, all of our money is going to marketing. Let's just go to the people that have the platforms. Picked up the phone, called Disney, and is off to the races.
Well, you had a pivot. You
a desperation pivot. A brilliant idea.
Yeah, you're a brilliant guy.
It was like, oh crap, we can't afford this.
We're in trouble. We got to do something else, right? We've all
Don't stop until Disney answers the right person.
Yeah, pretty much.
Keep calling. Yeah. So you decided. I guess what I'm trying to differentiate here is that you did it for yourself, and then you started to say, hey, we could do this for other people too.
Yeah. And it would have been a great, couple $1 million company. That would have been great. But, I just told the people this morning, unfortunately, you work for somebody that's gonna just always want to push the limit for right or wrong.
Sure.
And so we just wanted to, keep pushing that and see where it goes.
Great, good story. Well, last week we had a lot of good questions. You guys had a lot of good answers.
Yeah.
Ready for some of that again?
Bring 'em on.
Okay,
Ready.
Bring them on. Okay. I think you probably know Paige Zuttavern, do you or not? Okay.
No, but
she's the editor. She's Lincoln-based. You know everybody in Lincoln, right?
Sure, right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I need to see their faces.
Yeah. Paige asked, she's the editor of Strictly Business Magazine
Okay.
in Omaha and Lincoln. We all have seen that. What are the 3 most important things you would tell a younger sibling to not forget about business? Kind of a big value statement.
My specific siblings or any? Because
yours. She's wondering about what you would tell your little brother or sister. What to keep in mind. Go ahead, either way.
Sure. Well, I would just say that, if business, find a business that, or something that you're kind of passionate about, and whether or not it's the business that you're in, but there's an angle in there that you really are passionate about, whether it's talking to people or designing the products or keeping track of processes within the company. So I always want to find something that you either have passion for or that you're good at, and I think you're going to be fine.
You made me think of a guy I met many years ago named Bill, and Bill was a Latter-day hippie. He only brought the kids.
Wait, I remind you of Bill? Or
no, the story.
Oh, okay.
No, you're kind of like a hippie there, I think.
I'm nervous. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
You're next.
Forget Bill. He had to buy shoes for the kids when they had to go to school. So that's what he's kind of lived out of the van, played music, blah blah blah. Cool. Anyway, he built musical instruments, customized string instruments, very cool. And he also had a business of hanging garage doors and repairing garage doors. And I said to Bill, I said, this business of yours with those instruments are so cool. And this is pre-internet, and you could probably make a living out of just doing that. And he said, your passion comment remind me, said, well, then it's going to become like hanging garage doors. So, do the passion thing, do that thing. Otherwise, it's work.
Yeah. I feel like
that's what you're telling us, I think.
I feel like that's why when I was done with sports, I ran away from them as fast as I could. I didn't want to ruin it. It was like, you should coach or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to ruin it.
Good point. Did we give you a chance to answer about the siblings?
I'd say Pam, first of all, take a shower. next, brush your teeth. No.
Is that a real sibling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pamalanche is what we call
Now
it.
you'll have to
Pandemic is.
Okay, you're gonna have to send her the
awesome.
link now.
Yeah. No, she's awesome. She's a great human being. So she's wild. She's like the wild child, but also got A's and was like captain of our college volleyball team and all. Yeah, they can do it all.
Do it all. You cover all bases, right?
Yeah, wild child.
But
So,
what would you tell her?
I would tell her now. I would say, you have to get comfortable with fear, and you have to be aggressive and courageous. I would say also progress is straight from Ray Dalio. Progress is pain plus self-reflection. So, the faster that you can kind of absorb that pain and learn from it and move forward. And then I'd tell her the last thing is like, despite of, Steve Jobs or anything else you hear, like you don't have to be a jerk, right? So, those are probably the three things that I would want to know if I was
Would you repeat that second one again about the pain thing?
Yeah. So Ray Dalio has a book called Principles, a billionaire hedge fund guy, and he says progress is nothing more than pain plus self-reflection.
Interesting.
And the whole book, Principles by Ray Dalio, I mean, the one thing that I do a lot of is reading, and out of everything that I've read, there's only a few books that stick out over the past 8 to 10 years, and man, Principles by Dalio, it's like biblical for businesses. Yeah, it's really good.
Interesting. Eric, you said something about that self-awareness, that self-knowledge too, I think, and how that helps, I think, posture yourself for success in business.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, anytime that I think reading is great, I probably need to do more of it, but
We all do.
I think when you are interested in something and finding out information and how to get there and accomplish those things, I mean, a lot of these things that we're talking about, people have had success. We want to hear those stories on how they did that. So,
Yeah.
we're telling you our success stories, but that's because we've, read or visited or talked or
Been through the
met.
pain.
Yeah, or went through the pain of talking and
Right.
learning ourselves.
Sure.
And, I'm sure there's a lot more to come for both of us in
Yes.
that regard.
Yes.
But, you said be courageous. I think owning a business isn't for everyone.
No.
So, you have to be very courageous and step out of what,
Oh, it's not 9 to 5. I mean,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
can go to the 9 to 5, and I remember a story once of someone who said they had a real good side hustle going, and they were employed by the state government back east, and someone said, well, you should pursue this full time, and she said, and leave state government employee benefits,
Yeah.
That's one of the fears you got to get through,
Well,
right?
and there's all about those kind of fears. Well, great. Thanks for your answers on that. Amy Mayer, an occupational therapist and wellness professional who owns Mayer Wellness LLC in Omaha, asks, I love this question. Once I've defined my primary target audience, how do I determine the best platform or strategy for reaching and engaging them? So Amy is smart enough to know to develop an avatar, as they call it, some perfect customer of who do I serve? And after you identify, what's the best way to rock and roll on that, Paul?
Yeah, talk to 100 of them.
Talk to 100 of them.
Yep, absolutely. Pick up the phone, face to face. There's I think it's called Ready, Aim, Fire, or it's called Ready, Fire, Aim, Aim. It's a business book, and it's a play off of most people.
Is that by Guzman, Gina Guzman?
No, it's by Rob Adams, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
And the whole concept is, most people pick out their target audience and then they fire at it and they forget to aim, right?
Get it out of
and this happened to us. We were very clear in who our audience was, and we went after it, and it wasn't working. And then we found out our audience was not this thing, but it was a very different audience, which kind of blew my mind. But
Interesting.
How
did you learn that? How did you find that out?
I would say the people that were canceling were the people that I wanted to keep. So when we first started off, it was vitamins and supplements, and I envisioned being more of like a masculine, kind of like CrossFit meets kind of outdoors, like really intense supplements and like human optimization. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Onnit, O-N-N-I-T, but that's kind of what I kind of thought we'd be more like. We ended up being very much like a Target meets Lululemon of vitamins and supplements. And so it was really females seeking to kind of just get fit is kind of the couch to 5K runners.
Okay.
And once we saw those folks were like staying around, talking online about it, I was barely smart enough to go, oh, let's go to where that money's at, even though I really wanted, like
You were aiming at that other audience, and then you found by accident almost who your audience really was.
And I see a lot of people do that. They go, oh, we're a coffee shop, here's our audience, or oh, we do this, and they try to force it. But really, you got to go talk to 100 people, and in that process, you find out either it's them, or you find out, oh, they have a different headache than what I thought it was. Coffee isn't actually for the taste, it's for caffeine and stimulants. Solve that.
Community, whatever.
But bottom line is, talk to 100 people, and there's all sorts of things you can Google to, how do you get in front of those people?
Sure. Eric, any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I just think when you know your audience, it can sometimes be easy or it can be difficult. But I think getting out and finding more about who that audience is and what their needs are. A lot of times they'll tell you exactly what it is that you need to do. Or I mean, look at your competitors too. Sometimes they can tell you in a lot of ways too. So you want to make sure that you're studying your competitive products and customers, or not your competitors, period. Just studying them so that you know. 100%.
And you have I imagine, a real long sales curve in a lot of your sales. I mean,
it can be,
months
it
months
can be
before
years. They're raising money different ways.
Sure.
Philanthropic groups that are out there raising money for these projects, or a town or a city or a church that's still raising money for these projects. So it can take, sometimes they get a grant and right away they can run off and do a project, but it does take a while. So most projects are, a month to, maybe 3 months.
A lot of relationships, again, your answers are similar. Get out there and find out what's going on, ask the people for input, take that input, run with it, and
just
very good stuff.
Just do it.
Just do it. You don't have a Nike.
Most of it is we always say, what do you think you should do? They said, go do that now.
Yeah, and people listen. Too many people are.
Most people know what to do.
I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to solve this problem. And does that problem exist?
Right. Totally.
I'm going to force the whole thing about the carpenter. All he has is a hammer because all he sees is nails out there.
I got too many of those stories. Just being a knucklehead.
That's a good one. Anonymous wonders.
Ooh, yeah.
Anonymous. They say they have a solopreneur practice where they teach nutrition, health, and fitness to individual clients.
Yep.
They have thousands of competitors.
Yep.
How do I stand out? Nobody knows. It's a difficult thing.
Use
because,
the word solopreneur. I'm still stuck on that.
Oh, it's like
I get what it is.
Yeah, no, independent, I know. Oh, I know. You were
it's
one
like
once.
when people say
entrepreneur
at a company.
Just
stop it.
Do you see? Do they use that anymore? Is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Just stop.
You're kind of the entrepreneur for them. You're bringing it to the outside. Because, like you said earlier, they lose the entrepreneurial buzz and edge when they get part of a large organization.
I would say this: if you really need to focus on what is your aspirin to their headache, and identify what that is, and don't let go of it, even when you're tempted to go beyond it. So, if it's nutrition and it is specific to men over 50 wanting to become vegan, I totally made that up. If that's what it is, you dominate that category.
Right.
And you also have to ask, hey, if I've done a good job for you, will you introduce me to other men over 50 who want to become
Good
vegans?
point. Referrals,
And don't get distracted by that other stuff. And even with Google and SEO and everything, I mean, it's really boiling down to Google is looking for one individual in a relatively small geographic location that dominates a pretty specific subject matter, right?
Okay.
And so if I was that person, I would be really thinking am I the person in Nebraska who people come to become vegan or
XYZ,
whatever it is, right? Or keto or whatever. So those three kind of things are what, essentially search engines are currently looking for. And that always changes, but that really helps out because people naturally start to look for things. And on LinkedIn, if you popped up like Paul subscription box Midwest, that's the marketing. And you do that enough, stuff starts coming back.
Explain what SEO is in case someone doesn't know.
Well, first of all, anybody that tries to explain it to you is lying. It's like quantum mechanics. They don't actually know.
Nobody really knows. It's the guarded secret.
You know,
right?
truly, like even people at Google, they're like, they don't know the algorithm.
Oh, wow.
That's like the point, right? So I would say, it's search engine optimization, but the idea is if you go to Google or if you use Bing, stop it. And you're searching things out, if somebody's, literally we had somebody, Hasbro, we said, how did you find us? It's one of our first questions. And they said, well, I just literally was searching like help making subscription box or whatever. And one of our employees on LinkedIn had it in her description that we create private label subscription boxes. First result. And she's like, clicked on it. Here I am.
So now you use that one a lot more, that line, right?
Well, and we've been using that line for 3 years,
Okay.
and just now
Does it make a difference?
Oh, absolutely,
Sure.
absolutely. Here, if we reuse this content, we're going to use those words together.
Yeah.
So I'd say really, either having yourself, it's more beneficial to use your own name. Eric Crouch, Midwest Playgrounds. Is that a
Sure.
that? Got it. I knew that before I came into here.
Okay.
Because I remember I was driving and I pointed at something on the side of the road, and then they're like, I think that's Crouch's thing. And before he got here, I kind of knew those things.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if I wanted
roadside SEO, huh?
so if I wanted to build something, or like if Disney had something, I'd be like, I know a guy you should talk to.
Well, Eric, there's a lot of playground equipment companies out there. The question is, how do I stand out?
Yeah.
How do you stand out? What do you do? What do you recommend to others to stand out?
Yeah, I think that's the golden question. How do you stand out? How do you win? How do you get the order? Those types of things, right? I mean, that's
we
in
expect you
general,
to solve
that's
that in
that's
3
how
minutes.
you-
Come on.
Yeah, that's how you win in business, or stay alive, or keep going, or learn. And a lot of times, I think it's based on your customers.
Yeah.
And they're going to
Good
tell
point.
you everything that you need to know.
Good
So, I mean, visiting with them, you have customers. You should have at least one customer. and if it's not your customer, you can ask them, because they are your customer. Whether or not they're buying from you now or not, they're still your customer.
Right.
So you can, they're going to give you information, right?
Sure.
You just ask. What do you like? How do you purchase? That's one of the big questions, like for us, like how do you purchase? And then you're going to learn, well, we need to fundraise. Well, right away, right now, this is going to be a longer extended project, which is fine. That's just a way to go. They may say, hey, you know what, we got to purchase this. We got to spend this money by the end of the month. You're like, okay, well that puts another gear here. Now we got to change gears here a little bit and get you something quickly.
Sure.
But just by asking, have questions that you think are going to benefit the customer in a lot of ways, because really that's who you're working for.
Yeah.
So, and you'll learn a lot about yourself that way.
Well, that makes sense. Again, it comes down to listening a lot of times, what you're saying. I think both of you as well.
Yeah.
So cool. Moving right along, Blake Martin of FranNet of the Heartland asks, what's one thing you would tell someone who wants to launch their own business but is fearful of doing so? And I don't care who goes first.
Well,
our show is catering to the, you're both laughing. Don't do it.
I give like some presentations on this topic, so I'm like trying to figure out how to
How to word it in a minute.
well, I would just say, I do it because it's like my football career. Like I knew I wanted to continue to go do this because I never wanted to look back and say, well, what if I would have just done this? Look, man, go do it. If you fail, you fail, but at least you can look yourself in the eye and say, this is what I did. This is how I failed, but I learned.
Sure.
And you know what? That's the only way you're going to be. You talk about fear a lot and overcoming that. And I think that's, it's so true. It's true every single day. And so I think that's a good way to get it accomplished.
That's absolutely right. It can analyze things to death, right?
Yep.
But what else, Paul?
Well, so I want to be, I'll edit this out a little bit, or I'll kind of self-regulate here. Is this the camera that's on, where, that one? Yeah. Don't worry, you're going to become worm meat anyway. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And I always think about on my deathbed, I don't want the woulda, coulda, shouldas. That's being on my deathbed and having the woulda, coulda, shouldas is more terrifying than any embarrassment that like my friends or family or the world
Yeah,
will give
great
me,
point.
right?
Yeah.
So if I think about that, it gets me moving really quick.
That's bigger fear.
And then the other thing is like, and I'll edit this too, don't worry. You really have like two ways to look at it. Don't worry, like, nobody cares about my crummy little life, like poor me. Or, hey, nobody cares about my crummy little life. Like
Right.
nobody actually cares about like your box company or your playground company. They might be interested for a little bit, but 5 minutes after they
Yeah,
look at this,
5
they're
seconds,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah. So like, don't worry so much. Like you're not that big of a deal. You know?
And I love that because too many people get too wrapped up in things, don't they, Eric?
About who's thinking about me this way, or
Yeah,
how's
yeah.
this going to end up for me that way? What might my parents think of me? What might my brother think, or my sister?
Well, we
like,
go back
just-
to where we started, and that
you
whole
know,
thing about once you don't care what people think about you, you are free.
It really
you are
is. It
liberated.
really is.
We
Yeah.
have time for one last question, and that is entrepreneurship for everyone? Why or why not? And
No.
you both laugh.
No, absolutely not.
Go ahead, Paul.
You just have to have a higher pain tolerance, a higher hunger to learn. I think you had a lot of points there. You're just wired differently. That's it. And can it be learned? Maybe. But it's probably those people that are just not satisfied. They buy a new car and they're like, I want a better car, or I have this, and that's I think the people that just have to scratch that itch. So no. And I would also say this. I wish I wasn't wired that way.
Yeah.
I really do. Like once you get bit by the bug,
Yeah.
you're in it. Like,
Yeah.
and it does not go. It's a virus. It doesn't.
I think
go
you have a
away.
lot of what's next in you. And,
Oh, yeah.
And both of us, all of us, yeah. Eric, what do you think?
Well, I think a lot of people say, "Man, I can't work for anybody."
that's a
like
good
people
point.
say, like,
Yeah,
"I don't think
yeah.
I can work for anybody."
Yeah,
like,
that's
a really
I
good
mean,
point.
That's one of the things we kind of laugh about that, but to be honest, it's just that you have some ideas and you want to get them done. And you want to be able to, in a way, it's kind of like, okay, like you have your ideas, you want to get them out. You want to kind of see if you can make that work. And that's kind of the fun part about getting into business or owning a business is that, it's self-fulfilling, that you've got, an idea and you've, been able to make it work.
Right, a lot of sense of control as well.
Yeah, I think there's some control in there, but there's also, I think, just the opposite. Like, I don't
Well,
feel
that's
like I
true.
control
False
any
control.
of this.
Yeah, well, that's
False
true.
control. You feel like
Isn't
you
that
want it,
scary
but
when
you
you
just
find that out? You're
don't.
like, oh.
Yeah, like,
this.
I thought I was going to do that, that, but that wasn't the case. It didn't work out anything like
Let
that.
me
so-
rephrase, your sense of out of control.
Yeah,
that's,
yep,
you
that's
have to
true.
be a little bit loosey-goosey. So, gentlemen, it's been my pleasure. You guys are just so fun. We could go for hours, I think, with all this, and
agree.
we'll have to do another time, maybe. Who knows? Paul, Bulu
Anytime.
Group. Bulu,
Yes,
thanks for
thank
doing
you
this.
so
Welcome.
much.
Good to see you.
Thank you,
Eric,
Paul.
thanks for doing this
You're
again.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
I have your clothes. Are you ready for it?
I have one, but you go ahead and give it.
We'll
to
try
me.
mine first.
Well,
You
I'll jump in and you fit in.
You fill in the blank. All right,
Uh,
ready?
that's all for this week. Hope to see you next week on the Grow Your Biz Show. Visit growmedia.com in the meantime, and
Dun 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 dun.
Dun, dun.
Hey, that's it.
go on out there and build something. All right, guys.
Good
Guys,
stuff.
yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right. See you next time.